Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me once again as guest curator is Zack Derby from the Neatcast. Zack, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you for having me back. And I know this has been, you and I have gone back and forth about this for a while, and we've changed topics a couple times of what we were going to make a mixtape about, but this one is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm actually really excited about this one because anybody who's listened to this show for a hot minute knows that one thing I talk about pretty much every week is the fact that I love album opening tracks. And tonight we get to talk about them 20 times in a row. How wonderful is that?
And all 90s opening track. I mean, like, the 90s was so good for movies and music. And I'm sure I'm a bit biased because it's what I remember the most with growing up. But man, 90s was awesome.
90s is an incredible decade of music. How tough was it for you, Zack, to narrow down your bank of 90s rock album openers? Because even though we're kind of narrowing the scope here in terms of decade and genre, the word rock in and of itself is pretty vague, especially in the 90s.
Yeah, once you get to 90s, granted, you go back to the 80s, yeah, there's different genres of rock and roll, and it has since expanded now into the future of what 80s rock was and where it is labeled. 90s, though, like, you started with rock, but it quickly became the alternative grunge, the hardcore, a lot of other versions of rock that was a bit more prominent than just, oh, that's rock and roll. And this was pretty difficult because I have enough to make another album, I'm sure. When we get done with this, I'm going to have leftover songs.
I have 40 songs in my bank.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. Ready to go because I don't know what direction you're going in, and I want to try to have ammunition to go and either follow along or take us in a new direction, depending on where we go with this. So tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Zack and I will be curating the ultimate 90s rock album openers mixtape, and we'll use the old cassette deck approach. Zack, as my special guest, will begin side A with his first song choice, and then I'll add a song that I feel best follows up that choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 songs for side A. We'll then give our mixtape the proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with Zack choosing second. Our overall goal for this episode is to craft the best 90s rock album openers mixtape possible through only 20 songs. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com to give our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a part of the Patreon Mixtaper community at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you'll find ad-free episodes of the show, gain immediate access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, hear exclusive bonus banter clips, chime in on upcoming show topics, become a future guest, and so much more. And I'd like to give a shout out to some of the Patreon mixtapers who chimed in on tonight's topic, 90s rock album openers. Sean Goff chimed in saying, the tinny drums, then the squealing feedback, followed by a driving headbanging riff. Stinkfist by Tool is how you start things tonight. Seeker chimed in from Australia saying he's been struggling between hard rock and grunge, so he's going with an opener that he thinks straddles both genres, and that is Sister Havana by Urge Overkill, which opens up the magnificent album Saturation. Ben from the Too Vague podcast chimed in with Bjork's Human Behavior from her 1993 debut. Rob chimed in saying if Ben Folds 5 counts as a rock band, and he thinks they do, then Narcolepsy from the unauthorized biography of Reinhard Messner, or on a completely different level of rock, Pantera's Mouth of War off Vogel Display of Power. And he says now that he's actually thought about it, it has to be Bomb Track by Rage Against the Machine, doesn't it? Tom Hutchison chimed in saying he's going with Cherub Rock by the Smashing Pumpkins, saying it's a great start to an even more incredible record. Chad LaMassa chimed in with Mr. Self-Destruct from Nine Inch Nails' The Fragile, calling it one of his favorite songs from the band. Philip Bergman chimed in with a trio of songs, kicking off with Two from U2, Discotheque from Pop, as well as Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me from the Batman Forever soundtrack. And he also chimed in with Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana off of Nevermind. And finally, Brandon from Virginia chimed in with So Many, as he put it, Robbie Robertson's Night Parade from Storyville, Suicidal Tendencies' You Can't Bring Me Down from Lights Camera Revolution, Bad Religion's Generator, Fish's Julius from Hoist, and Soundgarden's Rusty Cage, just to name a few. Once again, if you'd like to chime in for future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, join the Mixtaper community at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. Now, Zach, I don't know about you, but if the Patreon Mixtapers barrage of picks doesn't scream that you and I are in for kind of a tough one tonight, I don't know what does.
Yeah, there was a lot that I heard. I'm going, oh man, they're really good at picking these songs. I got that one. I got that one. Oh, I didn't have that one. These guys might be a little bit better at this than I am.
Well, the Mixtapers do not mess around when it comes to something like song choices. But with that said, Zach, I think we should take deep and cleansing breaths, and I'm going to press the record button on the Ultimate 90s Rock Album Openers Mixtape and pass the mic to you. What 90s rock album opener do you deem worthy enough to open our mixtape of 90s rock album openers?
It's a lot of pressure. When you say it like that, it's a lot of freaking pressure, man. Going through what I have here, I think I'm going to go from the 1992 album Dirt, Alice in Chains, Them Bones.
Nice.
The album is a solid album, and I didn't own every album by Alice in Chains, but this was one of my favorite songs by them, and I think it's a damn good start.
Oh, dude, it's an incredible start. You scooped me right from the jump. I had both Them Bones from Dirt as well as Rotten Apples from Jar of Flies in case we were going in a more mellowness direction. That one just, oh my God, that opening of that song is so hypnotic. But you didn't start with that, so we'll talk about that another time. Them Bones. What a massive riff that is. This pummels you. There is some metal in the grunge with Alice in Chains. I think they're the heaviest of the big four.
Easily, yeah. I would lean to them as, quote, the heavy of the big four. And surprisingly, Them Bones is not a long song. It's only 2.5 minutes. And as I'm listening to it, I always felt it was a little bit longer just because of the cadence, but it never bothered me until I looked up to add it and go, oh yeah, it's only 2.5 minutes. All right. Short start.
It's a short start, but it's 2.5 minutes that aired on a lot of radio stations because it reached number 24 on the US mainstream rock chart, number 26 on the UK singles chart, number 22 in Ireland, and number 93 on the Australia ARIA chart. So maybe not a number one hit, but this song just has a timeless nature to it that if you put it on right now and you tell somebody, hey, this song is 33 years old.
Oh, I feel old now.
It sounds like it could have came out yesterday.
Yeah, it still holds up. I mean, and a lot of that I attribute to, the polish and the editing and everything that they did to put it together. Because some audio you hear over time, you go, yeah, that's old. That's old. That even digitally, when it's remastered, it's still got a little bit of age on it. This feels 90s, but also doesn't. It's a weird song, but I like it.
Well, I think I know what I'm going to follow that up with because you've already started the big four. You've opened that Pandora's box. So for track 2, I'm going to go with an album opener called Once.
Okay. I see what's going on here. All right.
Honestly, I could have went with Go off of Versus or Laxed Exit from Vitology, but I'm sticking with their 1991 album 10, and I'm going to go with Pearl Jam. Depending on where you listen, Master Slave is part of that, which is the opening instrumental piece that plays before the song. Personally, if I had any say in it, I would go with the remixed version from 2009. I feel like the remix truly sounds like it could have been released in any decade. And the 1991 original, as much as I love it, there still is that early 90s, late 80s sheen on top of the album, still kind of drowned in reverb. I think the newer version's a little bit more raw, but Once was always one of those songs, and don't ask me why. Anytime I go to a pool hall, and this has nothing to do with the song in any way, shape, or form, I just feel like this is a badass song to shoot around a pool to.
I can hear that.
It's the most random of things, but it works. Next time you're shooting pool, give this song a play.
I'm gonna have to pull that up and go, all right, Brian said, listen to Once while you're sucking at pool. Okay, I can do that while I'm being hustled. Yep. All right. So since I kicked it open and you continued to open the door, well, we're now I'm committed.
Okay, so whatever you pick now, my next pick will be the other one. So let's just get this
pretty
out of the
much.
way.
I think we need to do this just because we have to. I am gonna go with. Yeah, I think this is the right choice. 1991 from Bad Motorfinger, Rusty Cage. Because that first little intro of the guitar, just back and forth a little bit, and then it comes in, and it just goes and goes. Even though about 3/4 of the way through, all of a sudden they go a completely left direction, and you go, what is this? But it kind of snaps you back to it because you're kind of just in this mode with Rusty Cage. I enjoy that complete out of left field where they go with the song, but this was such a kick-ass start to the album. I love Rusty Cage.
Oh, Bad Motorfinger is it is my favorite Soundgarden album. Yes, I know. I know. But this one to me just had all the rawness and a little bit more heft than, people are going to get so pissed. I know how much people love Super Unknown, and zero disrespect to it, but Bad Motorfinger did it for me. Shout out to Patreon mixtaper Brandon from Virginia, who also chimed in with this one. And while it didn't chart here in the US, it did reach number 41 on the UK singles chart and number 80 on the Australia ARIA chart. So the UK and Australia got it right. We messed this one up in the US for sure. And I should also mention, because we have to talk cover songs, and it also happened in the 90s, while it didn't start the album, Johnny Cash, with a backing band of, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on the 1996 album Unchained, did a brilliant reimagining of this track. I played this all the time on my country radio show in college because to me, it's Johnny Cash and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers covering Soundgarden.
And Cash, I mean, that's, an entirely different conversation, but later on in his life, he did some very interesting covers that kind of introduced me to his earlier music, because I knew the name Johnny Cash. I knew a couple of his main hits from way back in the day. But then when he covered Hurt, and then he did a few more, and it was, okay, I know this guy. This is a little bit different. And then I was able to go back and go, holy shit. Sugar, honey, iced tea. It's like, this is such a weird direction, but I like his covers.
I will say this was one of the times that Rick Rubin truly hit a home run and knocked it out of the park, because just what you said, Rick Rubin saw the potential to introduce Johnny Cash to a new generation of people that, again, probably knew the name from their parents, but what he did in the late 90s and early 2000s made him cross-generational, adored by our generation and the one before. And it was amazing, perfect cover. But, okay, obviously, for track 4, I have to go Nirvana here, or else it's going to bug me for the rest of this episode. However, here's where I'm going to piss everybody off.
Okay.
I am not going to go with Smells Like Teen Spirit off of Nevermind, although I will give a shout out to Patreon mixtaper Philip Bergman, who chimed in with that one. And I'm not going to go with Serve the Servants from In Utero.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to go off the band's 1992 compilation Incesticide. Yes, I'm being serious. A compilation. However, Dive, coming out of Rusty Cage, I just feel musically works a little bit better than Smells Like Teen Spirit. And Smells Like Teen Spirit is the obvious pick here. And I wanted to go a little bit off the beaten path. See if you're really out there listening. Have you write it and be like, how dare you not put Smells. Honestly, I love Smells Like Teen Spirit. The song never got old for me. It really didn't. But Dive is probably one of my top 3 favorite Nirvana songs of all time. It was originally a B-side to the band's Sliver single that was released in 1990. And then they re-recorded it during the Nevermind sessions, and it ended up on Incesticide. My God, I just imagine this song on Nevermind. And I know they decided at the end that it didn't fit, but I kind of think it does. So throwing a curveball here, we are going with Nirvana, but Dive for track 4.
You know, it's kind of interesting that when you hear about what bands and artists do, like after the fact, when they're working with the producers, all right, what are we going to put on the album? And then you hear some of the songs that were considered and used for a later album or a non-album release or something. And you sit there and you go, why didn't this make the album? Because sometimes, in my humble opinion, sometimes these songs work better than some of the songs on the album. So I always sit there and wonder how much of this was someone fighting for creative control. Now, with Nirvana, I did look at them. I think of the big 4, if I have to put them in order, they're in 4th place. They came up with a lot of unique, they definitely I think one of the most unique sounding of the 4. They just weren't my favorite. But for me, if I was going to go, I was actually going to go with the MTV Unplugged in New York.
Oh, I forgot about a girl. Yeah.
For me, that is one of my favorite Nirvana albums. There's just something about how they all sound, just hanging out, playing, unplugged. The versions that they play and the direction that they take with all those songs, especially with About a Girl, it's like, God, this is really, I like this. Completely different from their album stuff that they released, their studio albums. But it was either that or Soundgarden, Rusty Cage. But no, I'm going to go, I like a bit more Soundgarden. So that's why I went with them instead of Nirvana.
I'll be honest with you, Zach. Had you gone with About a Girl from the Unplugged album, I was going to be picking Rusty Cage, so you could have gotten both picks.
I could have, damn it. All right, well, it's okay. You know what? We're still off to a good start.
That we are. So now I'm throwing it back to you for track 5. What are we doing after the big 4?
Well, now that we got that out of the way, so I'm going to go a bit different direction. I'm going to head out of America, and I'm going to find, let's see, this was also 1991. And I always screwed up saying the album name because I wasn't really sure. But Achtung Baby, is that how you say it? From U2, 1991, I wanted to go with Zoo Station.
Nice.
Which, it's not a song that you hear all that often on the radio in a lot of airplay. It's like we've used it when we do like A to Z. It's one of the last songs you play. But I hear it's just a fun song that it's a little earworm that when I hear it, I go, okay, I like Zoo Station. I can go with this for U2.
I love the fact that you went with this one because even though Patreon mixtaper Philip Bergman chimed in with both Discotheque from Pop and Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me from the Batman Forever soundtrack, Zoo Station, in a kind of a similar fashion to Dive, like you said, from Nirvana, these are not hit songs, but my God, they kick off the album listen with authority. And I can't imagine Achtung Baby starting off any other way. I mean, the fact that the U2 UV Achtung Baby residency that took place at the Sphere in Las Vegas opened with this song, I think they have enough trust in the track that it's, like you said, it's not a household song that people automatically go to, but anyone who's a U2 fan, I think it's a classic in the discography.
And if you're not a U2 fan, you may not be familiar with it. Well, it's going to be on the playlist, so you'll be able to hear it. I think it's a banger. I like it.
That's a great song. And I think to follow that up, because we got out of that kind of the heavier stuff a little bit, and I'm not saying U2 can't be heavy. They can.
They have their moments.
They have their moments, but I'm going to kind of stay in this just straight ahead rock vibe. And I'm going to go with one of my favorite albums that I got to see during this tour for this album. And on this tour for this album, I got to see a young Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters showing the world what he was made of. And that was on Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill tour from her 1995 album. Well, obviously Jagged Little Pill. I'm going to go with All I Really Want. The opening harmonica, the kind of little bit of doodling that happens before the song kicks in. There's something that's so 90s about this song. And this is Alanis reintroducing herself to the world. A lot of people, this is the introduction to Alanis Morissette, because the first song, at least here in the US, that people knew from Alanis, for the most part, was You Ought to Know. And then everybody went out, bought Jagged Little Pill, and All I Really Want was the start of the show. She has 2 other albums that came out in Canada prior to Jagged Little Pill. So for the US listeners, this song is a different experience than maybe some of our Canadian friends listening. But this song reached number 14 on the US Alternative Airplay chart, number 59 on the UK Singles chart, number 58 in Scotland, and number 40 on the Australia ARIA chart. To me, God, I hate to say like it doesn't get better then, but for Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill is an absolute masterpiece. And as much as I still pick up all of her albums as they come out, I could put on Jagged Little Pill anytime. If I start at the beginning of All I Really Want, I have to hear it all the way through. It's just a perfect album opener.
It's a good album. And I mean, one of the things I always don't judge an album, but how I kind of categorize them is like, all right, can I listen to this from cover to cover? And there's a lot of albums that I can. And then there's some that I just can't, because there's enough songs on there that I go, there was potential, but you guys put it into only 1 or 2 songs. And usually that happens later on in certain bands' careers when they're under pressure from the label company. All right, you got to churn this out. Well, we all had a decade to make our first album. Now we've had 6 months to make our next one. You can't put the same amount of love into it, but it's a solid album from her.
All right, so now we are back to you for track 7.
Of course, yeah. Well, going a different direction is never bad. So I think from the late 90s, whenever I hear the name of this band, this is the song that always comes to mind. It was played everywhere in the late 90s, late 97 into early 98. The Verve with Bittersweet Symphony from Urban Hymns. And this was kind of their big breakthrough album, where it went, I don't know, over 10 times platinum or something. It had a number of hits on it. It was played all over the world. A lot of airplay here in America.
Yeah, number 12 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the Canada Rock and Alternative chart, number 2 on the UK Singles chart, number 11 on the Australia ARIA chart, and it cracked the top 10 in Spain, Italy, Finland, Scotland, Iceland, Ireland, Sweden, and Norway. Total worldwide hit here. I worked in a record store when this album was out. We could not keep it in stock. I mean, like when the weekends hit and kids would get their allowance, like we knew to make sure we were stocked up on this album for the weekend rush every single week. And then as fast as it like took off, it was at that time when CDs were the medium, not like now, but the next one would hit and then that would be the big jump. I want to say Chumbawamba, their album with Tub Thumping.
Tub Thumping. Yep.
They both hit similar. I also think Brimful of Asha from Corner Shop also hit around this time. We could not keep those albums in stock.
And I think also sometimes it's weird because Americans will all of a sudden will focus on a completely different style of music, especially if it comes, from across the pond. And then something hits like that and they're like, oh, this is completely different than anything we have here. This will now be mine. And they kind of focus on that for a little while until the next big thing. We've seen that even through today. You have these one-off bands that'll have a major single that comes over here to America and it takes off because it's so different.
Exactly. And we don't want to forget the fact that Limp Bizkit covered Bittersweet Symphony as a medley with Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home on their 2005 Greatest Hits album. I just want to make sure we...
I forgot all about that. Oh, wow. Limp Bizkit and Disturbed are like two bands that are like every once in a while they'd be like, Disturbed did it like kind of album to album, and Limp Bizkit every once in a while would be like, let's do this cover. All right, that was unique.
But I like the way you kind of took it down musically, because I didn't know how or where I was going to fit this one in, but you just literally lobbed me the perfect pitch that I think that I hope I'm going to hit out of the park here. And I am going to go off of my favorite album from this band, and that is 1992's Automatic for the People. We are going to go with R.E.M's Drive.
Oh, this was on my list.
Reached number 28 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, number 7 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 11 on the UK Singles Chart, number 34 on the Australia ARIA Chart, and cracked the top 10 in New Zealand, Greece, Norway, Ireland, Portugal, and Switzerland. To me, it's hard to start off an album slow and still manage to capture people's attention. And while Bittersweet Symphony is kind of a mid-tempo song, Drive is a brooding, slow.
Yep.
The fact that they had the wherewithal to open up this album, because I love Automatic for the People, and if you take any other song from that album and put it in the one slot, it's a completely different experience for the album.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Man on the Moon, but it would be quite a different start to the album if that was track 1.
Yeah, I don't think you can get to an Everybody Hurts unless you start the album with Drive, because you think about the album before this, which was At a Time, you're coming from the land of Shiny Happy People and Losing My Religion. People were expecting Shiny Happy People too.
A little bit different.
But to me, it's their masterpiece. And I look, no disrespect to their 80s stuff in any way, shape, or form. Automatic is my top R.E.M. album.
Okay. Well, let's see. I've been out of the States for a bit, and this is my last one for this side, right?
Yes, you are on track 9 now.
Oh, cheesy, crazy, lemon squeezy. All right. So, you know what? This is a band that I haven't seen them live, but I did see one of the brothers live. And hopefully I'll be able to see them now that they've reconciled and they were actually on tour supporting this album. From 1990, Shake Your Moneymaker, the Black Crowes. I want to kick it off with Twice as Hard.
I actually had a feeling this is where you were going, because you said you wanted to come back to the U.S., that you were overseas for a while. And had you not said that, I would have been debating the whole time if you were talking about the Black Crowes or Oasis before you revealed the Black Crowes. Twice as Hard reached number 11 on the Billboard U.S. mainstream rock charts and number 1 in my heart. My all-time favorite Black Crowes song. I got to see them this past summer for the first time ever at the Wind Creek Entertainment Center. Second song of the night, Twice as Hard. Absolutely. You know, it's funny. I went with Pearl Jam in the 2 slot with Once. This was originally what I was going to do for track 2, Twice as Hard. Haha.
Yep.
But when you started with Alice in Chains, I felt like,
Yep. We have a vision when we go into this, and then one of us will do something. Now we're going to switch that around now.
Yes, by all means. I mean, I will never forget getting this cassette for Christmas and playing it over and over and over again. And this was one of those first albums that when CDs became mainstream, this was one of the first I need to replace my cassette with a CD of moments. So absolutely love the pick. And to close out side A, I'm going to stay in 1990, I think.
Okay.
And I'm going to start by saying, ladies and gentlemen, we have more influence over your children than you do, but we love them too. Born in and a gift of Los Angeles, Jane's Addiction. However, if you don't know what I'm talking about, most people know the opening as Señoras y Señoras. And I am not going to do the rest because I am not Spanish and I am not going to butcher it. I am going off of 1990's Ritual de lo Habitual, and we are going with Stop. Reached number 1 on the Billboard Modern Rock Chats chart on 2 non-consecutive weeks. My favorite album from Jane's Addiction, obviously Been Caught Stealing was the big single, but when you bought the album for that big single and you put it in and you heard that opening, and then you've got Perry Farrell screaming, "Here we go." Oh my God. And it's kind of funny that we're ending the side with him saying, "Here we go," but it is an album full of album openers. So as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. However, the song Stop closes out side A, and you know the way the song ends on that, just, and stop, and it just ends. I think the perfect way to close out this side.
That's very appropriate. That Jane's Addiction, oh gosh, who knows if we'll ever see them live again.
Unfortunately,
but, yeah. Man, I loved, I mean, they had a bit of space in between a few of their albums. What was it, 80, 87, 88 was Nothing Shocking? Yeah, 88 was Nothing Shocking. And personally, Mountain Song was my jam. I just love Mountain Song. And I mean, of course, Been Caught Stealing and Jane Says, and there's a lot of them that you hear on the radio, but Mountain Song was my love. I love that song.
I got to see them do that live with, believe it or not, the band that opened this side of this tape, Alice in Chains. It was Jane's Addiction opening for Alice in Chains, and Mountain Song was the highlight of the entire set for me as far as I'm concerned. It was just such a monster live. I really hope Perry can get it together because people still want to see them. It's a total shame what happened with them.
One of my former coworker was telling me about how she went to Ninja when it was 9 Inch Nails and Jane's Addiction, and she said that was a hell of a show.
I can imagine.
I would have loved to have been there.
Yeah. Man, we haven't gotten 9 Inch Nails in yet either. Anyway, and that Mixtapers concludes side A of the Ultimate 90s Rock Album Openers mixtape, which consists of Alice in Chains' Them Bones, Pearl Jam's Once, Soundgarden's Rusty Cage, Nirvana's Dive, U2's Zoo Station, Alanis Morissette's All I Really Want, The Verve's Bittersweet Symphony, R.E.M's Drive, The Black Crowes' Twice as Hard, and Jane's Addiction, Stop. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. And now, Zach, I am going to kick off side B by saying, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey, batter, batter, hey. Swing. Red Hot Chili Peppers' Power of Equality, 1991's Blood Sugar Sex Magic. My favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album. My favorite opening to a Red Hot Chili Peppers album. The song tackles everything that is as relevant now as it was in 1991. Equality, prejudice, sexism. And the song channels Public Enemy. Hell, he calls out Public Enemy in the song. And we talked about him earlier. Rick Rubin produced Masterpiece.
Rick Rubin, there's a lot that he's done that I really enjoy. When he's on point with, I think, the right collaboration of creative minds, they can really come together and make something. As long as everybody's willing to work together. Because there's been some stuff that Rick has done, and I think maybe the people he was collaborating with weren't of same sound mind and they weren't willing to work with him. So the finished product, I went, well, wasn't awful, but I felt like there could have maybe been a bit more potential from that, but maybe next time.
Not every hit is a home run, but I'll tell you, Rick has done a lot more albums that have blown my mind than albums where I kind of go,
Yeah.
I could go on just the albums that he's done. Beastie Boys, License to Ill, Death Magnetic. You think of even Black Sabbath's 13.
I don't blame, if the album to me is lackluster, I don't blame Rick. I am more inclined to be like, something broke down outside of Rick than Rick himself.
All right. Well, what are we following up The Power of Equality with?
Okay. Boy. So let's do this. This one I'm pretty sure somebody mentioned. I was never the biggest fan of this band, but they had some really good songs that I would enjoy. Mostly the radio hits, that's just how I would hear them. But every once in a while I go, all right, well, let's check out a few of the albums. And I did have, it's somewhere down in storage, Siamese Dream from 1993, Smashing Pumpkins. Cherub Rock is just a fun, alternative, kick-ass, grungy kind of guitar sound to start the album. Similar to Rusty Cage, it has a similar kind of energy to it.
Oh, by all means. You scooped me on the band and you scooped me on the song. I actually was thinking about putting Tonight in my bank from Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, but there is the song Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness beforehand, the little 3-minute instrumental piece.
It's just an instrumental, Brian. Technicality.
But at the end of the day, if I was going to put Cherub Rock on the playlist, I was actually thinking of it coming out of Soundgarden. But I obviously went with Nirvana because you talk Big Four. But at the end of the day, I think there's some people out there listening that would say that the Smashing Pumpkins need to be in the conversation of the Big Four. Cherub Rock reached number 7 on the U.S. Alternative Airplay chart, number 31 on the U.K. Singles chart, number 91 on the Canada Top Singles chart, number 87 on the Australia ARIA chart, and number 16 in New Zealand. So another worldwide hit for the band. Maybe not as high as some of the bigger hits from them, but definitely, as far as I'm concerned, an absolute staple from the Smashing Pumpkins, an all-time classic album from them as well.
It's still successful, and people still know it.
Oh, my God, yeah. And I think I'm going to go a little heavier now. Cherub Rock's heavy. It's got a vibe. Power of Equality is heavy in a way. Cherub Rock is heavy in a way.
Yep.
Bomb Track from Rage Against the Machine is heavy in another way.
Yes.
And as a bassist, that opening bass guitar run to open the album. That was one of the first things I said to my teacher at the time. I need to learn how to jam to this song. And there's just something so massive about it. The self-titled Rage Against the Machine album is one of my favorite quote-unquote heavy albums of all time. If you're a 90s movie fan, you obviously will remember the use of this song during the prison breakout in Natural Born Killers with Woody Harrelson.
Okay, yep.
And I mean, this is another instance where the song is 34 years old.
Stop saying things like that. Don't do that. It hurts.
I mean, Stone Sour covered this song for the Metal Hammer Goes 90s compilation and put it on the deluxe edition of Hydrograd. And if I play it back to back with Rage Against the Machines, Rage Against the Machines still sounds just as heavy and just as timeless as a newer band covering it from decades earlier.
Wow. I was also contemplating Rage, but I actually was not thinking that album. I was, and maybe on a future episode, if we have to keep doing these, I was thinking the Battle of Los Angeles sneaking in at the very, very end of 99 with Testify.
It's another great one. They always know how to open their albums. I mean, People of the Sun from Evil Empire, like they know how to album open. with authority.
Yeah, and that was one of the ones that when I heard that album, it was like, Jesus, this is rage.
And it's also the last studio album of original material you'd ever hear from them. So there's that too.
True. It's timeless now. It's a classic.
All right. Well, we are up to you now for track 4.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit different direction, out of the heavy. And with this band, I had like 5 albums to choose from the 90s if I really wanted to. And it still was kind of difficult because I was leaning Nimrod from 97, but I decided to go back to Dookie instead from 94 and go with Burnout.
Green Day finally makes the discussion. Yep. You knew it had to happen. I could have went with any Green Day album opener. I mean, let's just stick with the Trey Cool years here, okay?
Yeah.
You had 2,000 Light Years Away from Kerplunk. You had Burnout from Dookie. You had Armitage Shanks, which opened Insomniac, which is my favorite Green Day album. Yes, I said it. My favorite Green Day album. And when I first saw Green Day live in the 90s, Armitage Shanks was the song they opened with. And it's got one of my favorite Green Day lyrics, I must insist on being a pessimist. I love that line. But and then you have Nice Guys Finish Last from Nimrod. But I digress on all of that. Just like Rage Against the Machine opened up albums with authority, so did Green Day. You scooped me on the band. I had every single one of these songs in my list.
Yeah, and honestly, it just came down to which album I listened to more between Dookie or Nimrod, and just Dookie was the one that I just always kept going back to, that I just would put, that was a cover to cover one. I just pop it in and be like, all right, I'm good for whatever it was, 40 minutes, something like that. It was somewhere around there. And either one I would have been happy with. Had you scooped it from me, I would have been totally happy with it.
Now, you pivoted out of heavy going to Green Day from Rage Against the Machine. I'm going to pivot back to heavy.
Okay.
And I'm going to, like I did on side A with Nirvana, I think I'm going to piss some people off right now.
Oh, what? No.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Sweet baby boy, no.
Yeah, this is definitely going to stir up some shit.
Okay. All right, let's hear it.
Off of 1996's Load, I'm going with Metallica's Ain't My Bitch.
Wow.
Okay, everybody is thinking the same thing. Why didn't you go with Enter Sandman? Or why didn't you go with Fuel?
Yep.
Or why didn't you go with, I don't think many people are mentioning Free Speech for the Dumb from Garage Inc., even though I love me a covers album, but
yeah,
there's a reason I picked Ain't My Bitch. The song reached number 15 on the Billboard mainstream rock chart, but that's not the reason.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, kids, there was no such thing as, well, maybe there was, but it was very rare to get your hands on an advanced copy or a leaked album like you do now, where an album can sometimes be leaked months before it's supposed to drop. But head back to 1996 and young, healthy, and happy Brian was walking through the Meadowlands flea market before heading down to Six Flags Great Adventure to meet up with a group of friends. And one of the music stores that I frequented had a booth at the flea market. So I went over and said, hey, I'm going to be in on Tuesday. The new Metallica album comes out. I've been waiting 5 years for this one. He goes, well, why wait until Tuesday? Yeah. And he pulled out a box and he had a box of 30 copies of Load. And I was like, I'll take it. And we drove all the way down to Six Flags, which at the time was like an hour and a half with traffic.
Yeah.
We went and had a great time. And on the way out, I was telling my buddies that I had Load 3 days early. And people were fighting over who rode home with my buddy and I so that they could hear the album for the first time. So I think that memory is attached to this story a little bit. But to me, when I first heard that Ain't My Bitch riff, it just resonated with me. And I know Load is one of those controversial Metallica albums, but I'll be the first to say I friggin' love it. So Ain't My Bitch.
So congratulations. You did scoop one of mine. I think we've discussed it before that I am a slightly big Metallica fan. They are the band I've seen the most, that I listen to the most, that I have all the albums. They're just the ones that I listen to no matter what, even the shitty stuff. Lulu, I listen to, and I understand what it is. But when I was looking at 90s, Load and Reload came up. They were albums that I listened to, again, cover to cover. But I understand why some people dislike them, because it was not what they grew up with in the 80s. It was a shift for the band. But I also was looking at Ain't My Bitch because the last time I was on, I had Fuel on the playlist. Right. So I didn't want to choose it again. Even between the two, I think I like Fuel just because it is that fast, kind of a little bit thrashy type of sound to it, which is a lot of fun. But Ain't My Bitch is a little bit kind of heavier sound. And I was going, well, that I think would be the one, because I feel like we probably should have Metallica somewhere if I can work it in here. So that was the one I was going to go with.
All right, a full-on scoop. I love it. So now, coming out of Metallica, track 6, we're at the second half of side B. Where do we go from here?
Oh, that's right. This is me now. Damn it. I was talking Metallica. I'm distracted. All right, I'm going to pivot again. We're doing a lot of pivoting on this side, which is fine.
So as the 90s was one big pivot, let's just be honest.
It was all over the place.
From Friends all the way to the music.
Pivot? So I'm going to go again with late 90s. When this band dropped this album, I think this might have been one of my Columbia House things that maybe you signed up for and you got and then debated paying and all that stuff. I forget exactly, but I know it was late 90s, and I fell in love with this band, and I actually didn't even know that they had 3 albums because they kind of, I guess the marketing fell off after the second album, but from 1998, the self-titled Eve 6 from Eve 6.
Okay.
With How Much Longer. And this was a little bit back more to the alternative, a power poppy, I think at times they had in their songs, but every once in a while they just had a fun, riffy alternative song that they put in there. And this album, I just fell in love with. It's still one of my favorite albums that I can just sit down and listen to. Horoscope, I love as their second album. A little bit different, a little bit more poppy, but I still enjoy it.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, man. Self-titled, Horoscope, It's All in Your Head, and 2012's Speaking Code are all front to back listens for me. I've seen these guys several times in concert. They're always a great show. And I love the fact you went with this one because honestly, it's the only Eve 6 album you could go with.
Yeah.
So you were kind of tied by the decade by that one. But I know everybody looks at the album cover and they automatically think Inside Out. And as much as that was the song that introduced pretty much everybody to Eve 6, to me, there are other songs on the album that are even stronger than that, including the follow-up single Leech, How Much Longer, Showerhead. I mean, Inside Out is a great song, and it was obviously the most marketable one, so I understand why they went with that as a single. But this was a very, very, very strong album from a very, very, very young group at the time. And their potential, I think, was realized on Horoscope. And then it continued on It's All in Your Head, but I think musically the tides were turning at that point.
Not just for the band, but I think with radio in a lot of ways. Just even though I was in the industry at that time, a lot of bands that I had grown up with through the 90s just kind of disappeared, or you didn't hear about what they were doing. It was so weird to be in the industry, also be with like top 40s stations and not be hearing about this stuff, and then learn like years later, oh, that band did a thing? Papa Roach released music? Power Man 5000 is pop? Eve 6 had a third album? What the hell happened? Why did I not know any of this?
Well, we've been pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. So I am leaning in. We're weaving now at this point.
Yes.
Back and forth between lanes, and I don't care. Now, we've given Rick Rubin his flowers tonight for sure, but we haven't given him his wildflowers. So we have to go off of 1994's Wildflowers. Tom Petty. Of course I was going here at some point tonight. Reached number 16 on the Billboard Hot Rocks chart, even though it was never released as a single. That's how good it is. He doesn't even have to put it out as a single. Radio picks it up because he is the best. He's my favorite. Everyone knows that. Episode 95, the Ultimate Tom Petty Playlist. You can hear me wax poetic about the man with Kevin Brown from the Tom Petty Project. Awesome show he does over there. And we talk well over an hour about Tom Petty. And I don't want to say if we do or do not include this song, but we talk about the album, obviously. So I'll just leave it at that. It's a perfect album. Rick Rubin. I noticed I purposely left it out earlier when we were talking about Rick Rubin, but talk about pulling something out of an artist. It's my favorite Tom Petty album. So of course I was sneaking that in tonight.
Petty is one of the artists that is on my list that I missed. And it's one of those regretful things that that you take for granted when I play a lot of these artists daily, and it never really hit me until I think it was right around when Tom died of, oh shit, I need to start seeing these guys. I can't just keep pushing them off because I missed him coming to town. I missed Rush last time they came to town. There's been a number of bands that have come to town. I'd be like, oh, I'll get them next time. I'll get them next time. Thank God I have tickets to AC/DC because I am not missing them again. And after Brian said, I'm deaf, I can't tour. Oh, come on. Damn it. But now check them off my list. Thank goodness. But man, Tom, such talent, such amazing sounds and songs that he could create. He could do something rocking like You Wreck Me. And then he comes up with something like Wildflowers. And this song has a special meaning to my wife because at our wedding, this was the song that she danced with her stepfather to.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. I love it. And now, of course, I hear it. And now I just think of them and I start welling up. It's like, oh, emotions. Why? Stop it.
So we have been zigging and zagging all over the place here. How are you coming out of Wildflowers from Tom Petty?
I have nothing good. I can tell you that. I have nothing good to follow that. But we're going to keep hopping back and forth here. I'm going to pop back over out of America. We're going to go close to middle. All right, middle of the 90s. This is 94. This band has a particular sound, as certain Brit bands would. Kind of the Brit pop, I think, is what they fall under. But in 1994, I'm going to go with Park Life from Blur. That was kicked off by Girls and Boys.
Reached number 49 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 27 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 5 on the UK Singles Chart, number 19 on the Australia ARIA chart, among others. I know because of the stadium aspect of things, Blur is now more widely known for Song 2, but I think you can't deny the popularity of this song. Heck, this song charted higher than Song 2 at the end of the day. Now, it's my last song pick of the night, and I'm still riding on a recent high because several episodes back, I had the honor of bringing the original Counting Crows drummer, Steve Bowman, on the show.
Okay.
And we talked at length about 1994's August and everything after. And I am going to go with the opening song from that album and second single, Round Here. Go back to that episode to hear about the transition that Round Here made from Adam Durit's first band, the Himalayans. Because believe it or not, Round Here is a cover song. Well, it's Adam's song that he did with his old band, and he brought it to the Counting Crows. And if you hear both versions back to back, there's some similarities a little bit here and there, but I'll just embed the Himalayans version on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com so you can check it out. It's definitely worth it. But August and everything after, I talk about it for an hour on that album dive episode. So go check it out. One of my favorite albums of the 90s. And I'm just picturing the crescendo at the end of this song, kind of taking us out to the last song of the evening.
Oh boy. Man, I mean, from what I remember of trying to remember 93, 94, whatever it was, I remember hearing Mr. Jones everywhere on the radio. Around here, I don't remember as much. I do remember hearing it somewhere, but I don't think I heard it as much.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder if it's a difference of markets between you and I, because being towards the New York City radio stations, maybe there was a reason for that. But yeah, Around Here is going to close out my song choices for this evening.
Oh, shoot, we are at the end.
Yes, you have to.
Crap.
We've got about 75 songs you could choose from. No matter which one you pick, everybody's going to be angry that you didn't pick something else. So there's zero pressure.
No, I made him angry at the beginning, and let's piss him off at the end.
Yeah, there's always volume 2, though, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, you know what? There is always volume 2. Okay, so, even though this band is probably thought of as more of classic rock, 70s, 80s, and they've had lineup changes over the years, not due to their own choices. Of the 90s, there's 2 hard rock albums that come to mind, and I like to end a concert or end an album pumping things up, driving fast, having fun, and I'm going to go with 1990s The Razor's Edge with Thunderstruck.
Awesome.
Because whenever I hear this song, whenever I play this song, I can't but help but just, you're tapping your hands to the guitar once it starts. If you're in the vehicle, if you're on the bike, you stop looking at the speedometer because you're going, I don't want to look down. I'm just having fun. And if I look down, I know I'm in trouble. This is one of my favorite AC/DC songs. And a lot of the songs I love from them aren't even ones that really tracked well, that hit the charts. A lot of them, they are the far more popular overseas than they are here in America. But Thunderstruck is, you hear that opening guitar sound and you go, oh, I know what song this is.
Absolutely iconic opening guitar part. I mean, there's so many iconic opening guitar parts from AC/DC and Angus Young. So I think that's kind of a given when you talk about AC/DC. Now, you talked about deep cuts being your favorite. We are sitting here in 2025 recording this, and they're touring this year. And they're opening with my favorite AC/DC song of all time, and they decided to skip New Jersey. And that is If You Want Blood, You've Got It is the tour opening song right now. Oh. But anyway, the lead single from 1990's The Razor's Edge, Chris Slade slamming those kick drums over his head with the mat. Like, the song is thunderous. I mean, really, this was AC/DC reclaiming their sound, because the albums prior to that got a little bit heavy in the 80s reverb and production. Blow Up Your Video and Flick of the Switch.
Fly on the Wall
all had that really reverby sound. And this was where they went back to just being the raw AC/DC that people fell in love with on Back in Black. And I know there's some people that actually say, oh, it just goes from Back in Black to Razor's Edge. No. For those About to Rock's a killer album too.
No, I will argue, I will get in a fist fight. For Those About to Rock is a damn good album.
God, yeah.
But I understand. Back in Black, it made a statement similar to Metallica's Black Album. It was a statement. And then after that, okay, yes, it was a little bit different, but For Those About to Rock is still a damn good album. Not everything was a chart-topping single, but there's still good songs on there.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, look, there's not an AC/DC album I don't like. So I love this close. The song reached number 5 on the U.S. mainstream rock chart, number 20 on Canada's top singles chart, number 13 on the UK singles chart, number 4 in Australia, and was a top 10 hit in Belgium, Finland, where it hit number 1, Ireland, the Netherlands, Hungary, Sweden, New Zealand, and Switzerland. And it also hit number 10 on side B of the Ultimate 90s Rock Album Openers Mixtape, which kicked off with the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Power of Equality, Smashing Pumpkins' Cherub Rock, Rage Against the Machine's Bomb Track, Green Day's Burnout, Metallica's Ain't My Bitch, Eve Six's How Much Longer, Tom Petty's Wildflowers, Blur's Girls and Boys, Counting Crows Round Here, and AC/DC's Thunderstruck. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, Zach, why don't you remind people where they can find Neatcast and connect with you and learn more about the show?
All right. Well, if you want to learn a little bit more about what I do, you can head on over to theneatcast.com. That's our website, so you can check out all of our back episodes. You can learn a little bit more about us. I built some profiles, which I need to expand upon there. It's a not safe for work podcast where we talk about a little bit of pop culture, some weird stuff. I do that with Jer and Michael. We each have our own little area of, I'll guess, expertise. And we always like to talk a little bit about aliens and cryptids and ghosts or whatever spookiness is going on. And then I also do a bunch of stuff with Podcasters Assemble, which is a movie hype series where we wrapped up with all of the Ghibli cartoons and films. I had never seen them, so that was fun. And we are going to be figuring out the new direction for 2025, which will probably deal with some time-traveling movies, to be determined. But that is Podcasters Assemble or the Neatcast. That's where you can usually find me.
Well, Zach, always a pleasure talking music with you. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. Look forward to having you on again soon, man.
Now, thank you so much for the invite. Be safe, have fun, crank it up.
Remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, get early access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, chime in on upcoming topics, become a future guest, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.